Section 12 of Robinson Crusoe in Words of One Syllable. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Robinson Crusoe written in words of one syllable by Mary Godolphin. Section 12. One day the French priest came to ask if I could leave my man Friday here, for through him, he said, he could talk to the black men in their own tongue, and teach them the things of God. Need I add, said he, that it was for this cause that I came here? I felt that I could not part with my man Friday for the whole world. So I told the priest that if I could have made up my mind to leave him here, I was quite sure that Friday would not part from me. When I had seen that all things were in a good state on the isle, I set to work to put my ship to rights, to go home once more. One day, as I was on my way to it, the youth whom I had brought from the ship that was burnt came to me and said, "Sir, you have brought a priest with you, and while you are here, we want him to wed two of us." I made a guess that one of these must be the maid that I had brought to the isle, and that it was the wish of the young man to make her his wife. I spoke to him with some warmth in my tone, and bade him turn it well in his mind first, as the girl was not in the same rank of life as he had been brought up in. But he said, with a smile, that I had made a wrong guess, for it was Jack of all trades that he had come to plead for. It gave me great joy to hear this, as the maid was as good a girl as could be, and I thought well of Jack, so on that day I gave her to him. They were to have a large piece of ground to grow their crops on, with a house to live in, and sheds for their goats. The isle now was set out in this way. All the west end was left waste, so that if the wild men should land on it, they might come and go, and hurt no one. My old house I gave to the chief, with all its woods, which now spread out as far as the creek, and the south end was for the white men and their wives. It struck me that there was one gift which I had not thought of, and that was the book of God's Word, which I knew would give to those who could feel the words in it fresh strength for their work, and grace to bear the ills of life. Now that I had been in the isle quite a month, I once more set sail on the 5th day of May, and all my friends told me that they should stay there till I came to fetch them. When we had been out 3 days, though the sea was smooth and calm, we saw that it was quite black on the land side, and as we knew not what to make of it, I sent the chief mate up the mainmast to find out with his glass what it could be. He said that it was a fleet of scores and scores of small boats, full of wild men who came fast at us with fierce looks. As soon as we got near them, I gave word to furl all sails and stop the ship, and as there was naught to fear from them but fire, to get the boats out and man them both well, and so wait for them to come up. In this way we lay by for them, and in a short time they came up with us. But as I thought they would try to row round and so close us in, I told the men in the boats not to let them come too near. This, though we did not mean it, brought us to a fight with them, and they shot a cloud of darts at our boats. We did not fire at them, yet in half an hour they went back out to sea, and then came straight to us, till we were so near that they could hear us speak. I bade my men keep close, so as to be safe from their darts if they should shoot, and get out the guns. I then sent Friday on deck to call out to them in their own tongue and ask what they meant. It may be that they did not know what he said, but as soon as he spoke to them, I heard him cry out that they would shoot. This was too true, for they let fly a thick cloud of darts, and to my great grief poor Friday fell dead, for there was no one else in their sight. He was shot with 3 darts, and 3 more fell quite near him, so good was their aim. I was so mad with rage at the loss of my dear Friday, that I bade the men load 5 guns with small shot, and 4 with large, and we gave them such a fierce fire that in all their lives they could not have seen one like it. Then a rare scene met our eyes. Dread and fear came on them all, for their boats, which were small, were split and sunk, 3 or 4 by one shot. The men who were not dead had to swim, and those who had wounds were left to sink, and all the rest got off as fast as they could. Our boat took up one poor man who had to swim for his life, when the rest had fled for the space of half an hour. In 3 hours' time we could not see more than 3 or 4 of their boats, and as a breeze sprang up, we set sail. At first the man whom we took on board would not eat or speak, and we all had fears lest he should pine to death. But when we had taught him to say a few words, he told us that his friends, the wild men, had come out with their kin to have a great fight, and that all they meant was to make us look at the grand sight. So it was for this that poor Friday fell. He who had been as good and true to me as man could be, and now, in deep grief, I must take my leave of him. We went on with a fair wind to All Saints' Bay, and here I found a sloop that I had brought with me from home, that I might send men and stores for the use of my friends in the isle. I taught the mate how to find the place, and when he came back I found that he had done so with ease. One of our crew had a great wish to go with the sloop and live on the isle, if the chief would give him land to plant. So I told him he should go by all means, and gave him the wild man for his slave. I found too that a man who had come with his wife and child and 3 slaves to hide from the King of Spain would like to go, if he could have some land there, though he had but a small stock to take with him. So I put them all on board the sloop, and saw them safe out of the bay, on their way to the isle. With them I sent 3 milch cows, 5 calves, a horse, and a colt, all of which, as I heard, went safe and sound. I have now no more to say of my isle, as I had left it for the last time, but my life in lands no less far from home was not yet at an end. From the Bay of All Saints we went straight to the Cape of Good Hope. Here I made up my mind to part from the ship in which I had come from the isle, and with 2 of the crew to stay on land, and leave the rest to go their way. I soon made friends with some men from France, as well as from my own land, and 2 Jews who had come out to the Cape to trade. As I found that some goods which I had brought with me from home were worth a great deal, I made a large sum by the sale of them. When we had been at the Cape of Good Hope for 9 months, we thought that the best thing we could do would be to hire a ship and sail to the Spice Islands to buy cloves. So we got a ship and men to work her, and set out. When we had bought and sold our goods in the course of the trade, we came back, and then set out once more, so that, in short, as we went from port to port, to and fro, I spent, from first to last, 6 years in this part of the world. At length we thought we would go and seek new scenes where we could get fresh gains, and a strange set of men we at last fell in with, as you who read this tale will say when you look at the print in front of this page. When we had put on shore, we made friends with a man who got us a large house, built with canes, and a small kind of hut of the same near it. It had a high fence of canes round it to keep out thieves, of whom, it seems, there are not a few in that land. The name of the town was Ching, and we found that the fair or mart which was kept there would not be held for 3 or 4 months. So we sent our ship back to the Cape, as we meant to stay in this part of the world for some time, and go from place to place to see what sort of a land it was, and then come back to the fair at Ching. We first went to a town which it was well worth our while to see, and which must have been, as near as I can guess, quite in the heart of this land. It was built with straight streets which ran in cross lines. But I must own, when I came home to the place of my birth, I was much struck to hear my friends say such fine things of the wealth and trade of these parts of the world, for I saw and knew that the men were a mere herd or crowd of mean slaves. What is their trade to ours, or to that of France and Spain? What are their ports, with a few junks and barks, to our grand fleets? One of our large ships of war would sink all their ships, one line of French troops would beat all their horse, and the same may be said of their ports, which would not stand for 1 month such a siege as we could bring to bear on them. In 3 weeks more we came to their chief town. When we had laid in a large stock of tea, shawls, fans, raw silks, and such like goods, we set out for the north. As we knew we should run all kinds of risks on our way, we took with us a strong force to act as a guard, and to keep us from the wild hordes who rove from place to place all through the land. Some of our men were Scots, who had come out to trade here, and had great wealth, and I was glad to join them, as it was by no means the first time that they had been here. We took 5 guides with us, and we all put our coin in one purse to buy food on the way, and to pay the men who took charge of us. One of us we chose out for our chief, to take the lead in case we should have to fight for our lives, and when the time came, we had no small need of him. On the sides of all the roads we saw men who made pots, cups, pans, and such like ware, out of a kind of earth, which is, in fact, the chief trade in this part of the world. One thing the guide said he would show me, that was not to be seen in all the world else, and this in good sooth I could not sneer at, as I had done at most of the things I had seen here, and this was a house that was built of a kind of ware, such as most plates and cups are made of. "How big is it?" said I. "Can we take it on the back of a horse?" "On a horse?" said the guide. "Why, 20 of men live in it." He then took us to it, and I found that it was in truth a large house, built with lath and the best ware that can be made out of earth. The sun shone hot on the walls, which were quite white, hard and smooth as glass, with forms on them in blue paint. On the walls of the rooms were small square tiles of the best ware, with red, blue, and green paint of all shades and hues, in rare forms, done in good taste, and as they used the same kind of earth to join the tiles with, you could not see where the tiles met. The floors of the rooms were made of the same ware, and as strong as those we have at home, and the same may be said of the roofs, but they were of a dark shade. If we had had more time to spare, I should have been glad to have seen more of this house, for there were the ponds for the fish, the walks, the yards, and courts, which were all made in the same way. This odd sight kept me from my friends for 2 hours, and when I had come up to them, I had to pay a fine to our chief, as they had to wait so long. In 2 days more we came to the great wall, which was made as a fort to keep the whole land safe, and a great work it is. It goes in a long track for miles and miles, where the rocks are so high and steep that no foe could climb them, or if they did, no wall could stop them. The great wall is as thick as it is high, and it turns and winds in all sorts of ways. We now saw, for the first time, some troops of the hordes I spoke of, who rove from place to place, to rob and kill all whom they might meet with. They know no real mode of war or skill in fight. Each has a poor lean horse, which is not fit to do good work. Our chief gave some of us leave to go out and hunt, as they call it, and what was it but to hunt sheep? These sheep are wild and swift of foot, but they will not run far, and you are sure of sport when you start in the chase. They go in flocks of a score, or two, and, like true sheep, would keep close when they fly. In this sort of chase it was our hap to meet with some 20 of the wild hordes, but what sort of prey they had come to hunt I know not. As soon as they saw us, one of them blew some loud sounds on a kind of horn, with a sound that was quite new to me. We all thought this was to call their friends round them, and so it was, for in a short time a fresh troop of the same size came to join them, and they were all, as far as we could judge, a mile off. One of the Scots was with us, and as soon as he heard the horn, he told us that we must lose no time, but draw up in line and charge them at once. We told him we would, if he would take the lead. They stood still and cast a wild gaze at us, like a mere crowd, drawn up in no line, but as soon as they saw us come at them, they let fly their darts, which did not hit us, for though their aim was true, they fell short of us. We now came to a halt to fire at them, and then went at full speed to fall on them sword in hand, for so the bold Scot that led us told us to do. As soon as we came up to them, they fled right and left. The sole stand made was by 3 of them, who had a kind of short sword in their hands, and bows on their backs, and who did all they could to call all the rest back to them. The brave Scot rode close up to them, and, with his gun, threw one off his horse, shot the next, and the 3rd ran off, and this was the end of our fight. All the bad luck we met with was that the sheep that we had in chase got off. We had not a man hurt, but as for the foe, 5 of them were dead, and not a few had wounds, while the rest fled at the mere noise of our guns. Thus we went on our way from town to town, and now and then met some of these wild hordes, whom we had to fight, and I need not add that each time we had the best of the fray. At last we made our way to the chief town of the North Seas at the end of a year, 5 months and 3 days, from the time when we left Ching. When I had been there 6 weeks, and had bought some more goods, I took ship and set sail for the land of my birth, which I had left, this time, for 10 years, 9 months, and 3 days. And now I must bring this tale of my life to a close, while at the age of 80 years and 12, I feel that the day is at hand when I shall go forth on that sea of peace and love, which has no waves or shores, but those of bliss that knows no end. End of Section 12 and end of Robinson Crusoe in words of one syllable by Mary Godolphin. Read for LibriVox by Dennis Sayers in Modesto, California, Spring 2007.